Trigger warning. This podcast episode features discussions of emotional and narcissistic abuse, grooming, molestation, and suicidal ideation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Emotional Abuse is Real. I'm your host, Serene Leeds, and I'm so glad you're here. How's everybody doing? My family and I are coming off of a major illness wave, so forgive me if my voice sounds a bit funny. I'm, as usual, drinking my tea, and I've been fighting off my husband's super cold and my daughter's strep throat for the past week. So bear with me. As always, before we get into today's episode, I have a few requests. First of all, please make sure you're subscribed to this podcast on either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Second, please follow me on Instagram at Serene Leeds Writes. That's SareneLeedsWrites. I've provided the link for you in the show notes. Another way to connect with me and this podcast is through my email list, which you can subscribe to by downloading my free resource, 10 Things I Learned from Getting Paid to Watch TV. This download is a collection of some of my best writing tips and tricks, all of which I learned from covering television. My email list is a great way to stay up to date on my latest published articles, new podcast episodes, and to connect with me if you're a business or brand owner. Did you know that in addition to my journalism work, I'm a professional writer specializing in website and email copy? Well, now you do. And if you're in the market for someone who can make your business copy sparkle, I'd love to talk to you further. The sign-up link for my free download, 10 Things I Learned from Getting Paid to Watch TV, is available in both the show notes and on my website, SereneLeedsWrites.com. Speaking of my website, are you mulling over possibly hiring me to do some fabulous copy work? Hey, that's awesome. But don't just rely on my own self-promotion. You can find several glowing client testimonials over on SereneLeedsWrites.com as well. As for the podcast, this is your friendly reminder that if you're a listener and you'd like to share your story on Emotional Abuse is Real, please don't hesitate to reach out via Instagram DM or via email at hello@SereneLeedsWrites.com. Anonymous guests are always welcome. Another way you can support Emotional Abuse is Real is by heading over to Apple Podcasts and both leaving a 5-star rating and writing a review. The more reviews we get, the easier it is for people to find this podcast. Finally, please consider donating to our Buy Me a Coffee page, which I've linked in the show notes. As I've said before, this is a one-woman operation, and your donations help fund the podcast's production costs. If you can, please share this podcast with anyone who might benefit from it. I truly do believe that we are building a community of survivors with emotional abuse is real. And the more awareness we raise, the easier it will be for victims to come forward. My guest for today's episode is Theresa James. Theresa is an emotional abuse survivor who has channeled her experiences into a fruitful career as a trauma therapist. As a teenager, Theresa was groomed by an older man who would eventually become her husband. After 12 years of abuse, she finally divorced him and began her life anew as a single mother. I am so grateful to Theresa for sharing her story with me on the podcast, for discussing the important work she does as a licensed clinical social worker, and for chatting with me about the power of meditation as a solid first step toward healing. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Theresa James.
My name is Theresa James, and I'm a licensed clinical social work, and I live in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Excellent. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm really looking forward to talking to you because not only are you a clinician who helps emotional abuse survivors, but you are an emotional abuse survivor yourself. So, to kick things off, I would love to hear your story.
Okay, I'm going to try not to get too wordy. Sometimes I get too wordy, but I'm going to do my
It's okay.
best.
That's okay.
Um,
It's a podcast, not a written article. Don't worry about it.
Thank you so much. For some reason,
Of
I'm nervous,
course.
and I'm not sure why.
Oh,
So,
all good. I still get nervous when I interview people, so it's okay. We'll be
okay,
nervous together.
sounds good. Thank you for that validation.
Sure. Of
So,
course.
the big part of my story is that I was born in a really big Catholic family. I'm the
Mhm.
number sixth child of 11. There was
Mhm.
five older and five younger.
Yeah.
And my having 11 children like that, you can imagine that affected my mom.
Sure.
And this is not about blame.
Yeah.
However, what happened is that there was a lot of neglect. Of
Yeah.
course, there's going to be that.
Yeah.
And so as I grew up, I was I learned from an early age. That what my narrative that I wrote as a little girl was that I needed to be seen, I needed attention, but I needed to be good or
Mhm.
excel in something so
Mhm.
that I could get my parents' attention. And
Sure.
at an early age, I had brothers that wrestled, and I knew I wasn't going to do wrestling. However, I can wrestle. I,
Excellent. Love it.
but what I figured out is I was really good at running, and
Okay.
really wanted to be a long distance runner. And
Mhm.
so my brother knew about this coach that was coming to my grade school.
Mhm.
And when that coach was there, I just blurted out one day, like in the cafeteria line, I want to be a runner. And
Mhm.
I didn't formally ask him if he would help me, but that's what my little girl self was doing. I wanted to be a runner, but not just a runner. I wanted to be a good runner
Mhm.
because I knew that I had really good long distance skills.
Mhm.
And what happened is this coach, he was the principal at the time,
Yeah.
uh, was not a good person.
No.
And of course, he also has sexual abuse and trauma in his
Mhm.
past, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of emotional abuse.
Yeah.
But he began grooming me. I was
Mm.
around 12, 13, and then when I went to high school, he had been at that high school before, and these were Catholic schools, and
Sure.
he went back to that school and then really aggressively became one of his victims.
Yeah.
And how that affected me. The grooming process, it's long, it's really
Mhm.
messes with the victim's mind,
Yeah.
and they think, or I thought, that I was wrong, and I never said no.
Mhm.
And he waited until I was 16 for some reason that was okay. And then became
Ay.
then it began.
Yeah.
uh, and then something happened as I started getting older, that I went away to college. I walked on to the University of Arkansas's cross country team.
Mhm.
I, I made a break,
Mhm.
and but uh, he was acting like we were dating,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yes, and so for 6 weeks at the University of Arkansas, I was really starting to get stronger, and talking to other teammates, and they said my coach did to me, and I told him to, you know,
Yeah.
F off.
Yeah.
And so I got up the courage, but I was still in touch with him, but I was
Yeah.
really feeling a sense of freedom and
Mhm.
power.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so one weekend, about 6 to 8 weeks in, I went to his new school, which was about 3 hours away.
Mhm.
And told him, I can't, we're done. I can't do this. And I
Good for
said,
you.
I even said, could we be friends?
Oh,
And
yeah,
yeah.
sure.
And then he said, no, we cannot be friends. And for some reason, he had to go back somewhere. I went 2 hours away. I went with him. And then I went to my childhood home and I just felt this weight and release. And
Mhm,
then I went
mhm,
back to college, which was
mhm.
6 hours up there, and I'm up in the lobby um, of my dorm, and I'm hanging out with literally athletes that went to the Olympics 4 years later. Like
Oh, wow.
the University of Arkansas has a huge track program. They're
Mhm.
always really good at it, and so I was hanging out with some runners. I think a shot putter, and we were having so much fun. I was
Yeah.
teaching them how to wrestle, and then all of a sudden, one of the runners goes, Theresa, there's an old man up there calling your name.
Oh, no.
And I turned around and immediately knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
And we went and got something to eat, like Taco Bell.
Mhm.
He asked me to marry him, and I didn't say yes right away. But then, literally, what he did is he kidnapped me
Oh,
and took me
yeah.
away, and then was saying that he was moved by God to come get. Yeah,
Yeah.
this,
I know, I'm
yeah.
like, I'm not laughing, I mean, it's a horrible situation, but I'm
No, it is funny. I'm
I
bringing
know,
humor to it, so I'm not
because
crying.
we have
Yes,
to.
absolutely, absolutely, and thank
Yeah,
you for just
sure.
saying that and
Of course.
normalizing that. And
Yes.
uh, so really, what I thought is I had so much shame, guilt, as you
Yeah.
can imagine, even
Yeah.
remorse, because I was the bad one. Because in his mind, I had seduced him like a 12-year-old. I didn't even know. You can
Wow.
imagine. I didn't even know what the whole process was.
Sure.
And I didn't know what was happening. After the first
Yeah.
time of overt molestation, I
Yeah.
remember getting up and taking a shower and crying. And
Yeah.
so, and what I know now is, that I never said no, but I definitely never said yes.
Right.
And now I know the impact of all of that.
Of
Uh,
course.
but when he had me at Taco Bell and on that
Yeah.
kidnapping weekend where nobody knew where I was, and what I
Oh,
know now is that it's kidnap,
yeah.
um, I decided I could, oh, that I could correct all the wrong I had done by marrying him. So I
Mhm.
married him.
Yeah.
My parents, my dad tried to talk me out of it. My oldest brother tried to talk me out of it, but literally thought I was doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Even after we got married, my grandmother, was like a staunch Catholic, she had
Mhm.
mentors underneath her, spiritual advisors, kept saying, we'll go get it. We'll get it and all. There's time to get out of it. We can get it.
Mhm.
And I thought that was what I had to do.
Yeah.
And then boom, 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 we had 3 kids,
Mhm.
and there it was. And I did
Yeah.
not leave that situation until almost 12 years later.
Wow.
And it took him. So this is a serial predator,
Sure.
and I even know I found out just 6 years ago that he had already had a child that he had abandoned,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
probably with and I found that because my son had a 23andMe test,
Ah, yeah.
and
Sure.
during that time, but um, so he has a list of victims,
Yeah.
but I never reported him. And the
Mhm.
only thing that got me out of that situation was that he was having affairs.
Ah,
And so,
okay.
I said, like, I'm way unhappy, but literally I was going crazy. And that is the emotional abuse started as an adolescent,
Yeah.
but it extended into young adulthood, and I literally thought I was going crazy,
Yeah.
like, and that I was bad. and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bad
Mm-hmm.
person. And then I built so much anger and rage. I've it's it was messy. Once I got
Yeah.
divorced, then I was a single parent, and the
Yeah.
poverty level way down. And
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a physician, and my
Yeah.
mother, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she also had her registered. She was a registered dietitian,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was a lack of a scarcity mentality, but we were in no way poor or
Right. Of
poverty.
course. Of
Eh,
course.
And
Yeah.
but when I was a single parent, yes, way down. And so uh, it was, and then I hadn't gone to college. I started college.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, it was, because I withdrew through the university, and
Yeah.
then I was on my own trying to, even though I was married, it was things like, you should have a job by now. Like, I remember at age 20, or like even right after I had my first child at
Yeah.
19, I was a teenage mother. Like,
Yeah.
the doctor would say, well, you're high risk because you're a teenager. And I'm like going, oh, like, I
Yeah.
was like, it was just odd.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
messes with your brain.
Yeah.
And of course, the anger, the rage, and
Yeah.
then trying to raise three children, which I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
I did it, but I finished my degree in biology. Then I got a nursing degree on my own
Mm-hmm.
when I was single, and then worked as a nurse for a long time. And then decided that I really wanted to get in the field of therapy, inspired by my therapist, my a therapist that I had, that she was in her mid, almost late 70s, and she
Mm-hmm.
goes, well, you could do what I do. And that's
Yeah.
when I went back to school to get my master's.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
but I didn't do that until my 50s, and I'm 60 now.
So what? So what?
Yeah, yeah.
I finished my master's degree a year ago at the age of 45. So what?
Yes,
Good
yes,
for you.
I can say that, but the residuals of going through emotional abuse is the shame, guilt, remorse, and then I mean,
Yeah.
even before this call, I was like going, gosh, I'm 60. I'm just now starting. And like, why am I so old? and then,
No, you are okay.
and
First of all, you are not old, and also you are helping people. You are
yes, oh,
helping
yes,
people, and
yes,
I'm
yes,
so glad you are here telling your story. Just before because I want to move more into what you do
yes.
in your business, but so I just have two questions. One was, can you give some examples of the emotional abuse and the grooming that you
Okay.
endured? Yeah.
Well, first of all, he started writing letters to my
Uh-huh.
home. Like,
What?
that's so odd.
Yeah.
It was so odd. He would write letters. And so he would write letters. And then he started inviting me to go on races. And this was eighth grade, ninth
Mhm.
grade.
Mhm.
I can't remember the exact ages, but it was
You were
odd.
young. You were
Yeah,
young. That is odd. Yeah.
and it's starting to take me places. So, uh, and even my brothers thought it was odd, and I felt special. I felt
Mhm.
special, and he did it. And
Yes.
sometimes he would take other girls, but now what I know is he was probably grooming them
Of
as well.
course.
But
Absolutely.
and then he would say things like, this is horrible. I remember in 10th grade, by the time he had come to my high school,
Yeah.
and he didn't just come for me. He came for, like, this man had a string,
Sure.
a
Sure.
chain of, but I
Yeah.
felt like, oh, he came there because he wants to be my coach.
Right.
That's what we think. We get confused.
Yeah.
And I remember stretching on the ground. I was doing a runner stretch, and I weighed 98 pounds.
Mm.
98. I was
Yeah.
little. I was
Yeah.
under 5 feet tall. I was
Sure.
tiny.
Hmm.
And I'm stretching, and he's pointing out fat on my legs.
Oh no. Okay.
So he did the shaming.
Yep.
So it was very cyclic. He would
Hmm.
do the give the special for the grooming, letters, phone calls, events that had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Uh, like he was helping us. I'm doing
Right.
air
That's
quotes. I
fine.
know you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. No, thank you for saying that. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So um, we he would do things like that to make me feel special, and
Hmm.
it worked,
Hmm.
and I trusted him. He did the typical things to build trust,
Yeah.
and then he started critiquing me. And like
Hmm.
I remember, I was very excitable and energetic,
Yeah.
and I would run. And I felt confident too. And I
Hmm.
would walk through the halls, and I'd swing my arms, and I was just like bubbly personality because I was starting to come into my own.
Yeah.
And he would pull me inside and said, "That's not how a lady walks."
Ugh.
Literally, I'm just telling you, like, as I'm
No.
telling you this out loud, I'm going, this was bonkers.
It
Uh,
was. It was. I've told it on the podcast before, but I'm just going to share it because it's so similar to what I went through. My boss was my emotional abuser was my boss at Rolling Stone. So he was threatened by my confidence and how good I was at my job. Okay? He used to call me cocky.
oh, yes, yes, yes. I heard that word. I heard that word.
Cocky. He called me cocky. And there was a part of me that was like, what are you talking about? And then there was a part of
Yeah.
me that was like, oh my God, am I?
Right, right. And so that's why it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's verbal, it's comments, it's verbal,
Yes.
even mannerisms, but critiques. Like they even have a place to critique. Like
Yep.
not right.
No.
Then also he started sending me gifts.
Aha. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I said we're not poor, but yet I didn't. When you're in a big family, you just don't. You try not to be a burden. And my mother
Yeah.
had mental health issues. He
Sure.
really. I was a perfect victim for him.
Yeah.
Literally,
Because you were
literally.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of stories in our family, and that's for my siblings to tell. But
Yeah.
and it is what it is. I really
Sure.
believe that, and I
Of
don't have
course.
blame to
No.
my parents.
No.
I did at some point, but
Yeah.
I have really worked on that, and I've been to a lot of therapy myself.
Of course. Well, we talk about that a lot on this podcast, and I'm always very clear to say I don't blame my parents. No, my parents did not emotionally abuse me, but I just, there are some things that happen. We talk about the emotional neglect, and I think that allowed me to fall prey to my abuser, but I'm always very clear. I don't blame my parents because they were working off of what they had.
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I definitely think, and that's also is kind of I'm kind of jumping ahead,
That's
but
okay.
that's also a space and a pathway to healing that
Hmm.
I use with my clients. Is
Wonderful.
that yes? You know what? Almost everybody like I even had a situation, a family session yesterday, and
Hmm.
where it was mentioned. Oh no, I had a great. It's mostly in their side of the family, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking pretty much. You may not call it trauma,
Right.
but you have events, adverse
Yeah.
childhood events that have affected how you are today.
Hmm.
And to think that you don't is really you're missing the opportunity to invite more healing
Yeah.
into your life. And the cool thing when parents, it's really cool that these parents even came in because I'm
Yeah.
working with their child.
Oh,
Yes,
that's wonderful.
yes,
Excellent.
like
Yeah.
they are excellent. But as as the mother or as the father, as
Yeah.
they really tend to their own emotional needs and regulation. And I'm not talking about control. I'm talking about
Yeah.
regulation where you're
Sure.
healing and
Yes.
you take ownership of this wide diverse of feelings that we have that
Hmm.
are rooted in the past. When you do this, it the effect on so many people. It's not just for you. It's like
Yeah.
many, 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 many people. Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so I'm almost ready to get into that. So my only other question is, so I just want to clarify. So you finally left your husband because he had been having affairs. So I just wanted to like clarify the breaking point. Yeah.
Yes, I was 30 years old
Hmm.
and had three children,
Sure.
4, 7, and 10. And I
Yeah.
moved
Wow.
away from him. Even he tried to control that, like,
Yeah.
you have to do this and you have to do that, you know. And so even though I had the divorce, the emotional abuse continued as
Oh,
you
yeah. I'm sure
and
that's yeah.
it lingers even though the person's out of the life, and of course that's why we have trauma informed care,
Yes.
and that's why it's imperative to have several different tools
Yes.
from several different ways,
Hmm.
and I'm not definitely not I also agree that sometimes it's pharmacological, that you need medication
Hmm. Hmm.
to as another tool.
Yeah.
The thing about medicine
Hmm.
is the medicine can't change the way we think.
No. Yeah.
It can take the edge off, and it can help give you the
Yeah.
transmitters, the serotonin, the GABA, all everything you need in that area for the brain. But
Yeah.
it can't change the way you think, and it
No.
can't. And then that means it can't change the way you behave.
Right. And that's where therapy comes in, and that's where the work that you do comes in. So I just want to commend you on divorcing your husband and forging your own path, because you are an inspiration to so many people out there. So I would love to hear more about your practice and what sets your therapy practice apart from others.
So this is not even from um, credentialing or
Hmm.
studies. There's something about my personality
Hmm.
that the best reviews that I get, like on Google, are she's easy to talk to.
Oh, that's
Like,
great.
and it's like if there's a rock out there, I'm going to have a conversation with that rock, and that rock's going to talk. So my number one skill is that I make it an easy place to open the dialogue, and then I cultivate it as a safe place that
Okay.
they're not going to. Unfortunately, I think especially a lot of kids. And probably it happens in couples too. Therapy is used as a discipline or as a threat, and it's not punishment to go to therapy.
I
You
Yeah. I felt that way when I was a child. I definitely felt that way
yeah,
when I was a child. It was not until I was an adult and I started making my own therapy decisions. You're absolutely right.
and so the other quality I think I have is especially comes from being a social worker type
Mhm,
therapist,
mhm.
is that I meet the person where they are. So
Yes.
the combination of being easy to talk to and making a safe space, and then not forcing, then that gets people to open up, and it's like they can vomit it out, or
Yeah.
diarrhea. Sorry, those words.
It's fine.
I
I don't
used to be a nurse.
Exactly, and it's fine, and you know what? Look, I this podcast is for everyone, but we're also both mothers, so we can hear and take anything. So let's be honest here. I always like to make that very clear. Like just because I'm saying, hey, we're both mothers, but that doesn't mean that this podcast isn't for everyone else. So yeah. So it's totally say what you want. I do not care. Yeah.
And so I do also know that when people start with me,
Hmm.
um, definitely I start where they are. We
Yeah.
start where they are, but
Yeah.
also I'm not complacent in therapy. I'm not just a container,
Yeah.
and I have learned the skill of, and this probably came back from working as patient, one-on-one patient care as a floor nurse.
Yes.
Also, that I do also challenge. A lot of
Mhm.
people do not like to be challenged.
Yeah.
Um, it's not interrogation,
Mhm.
but it's a gentle nudge. I consider myself only a facilitator.
Mhm.
I am, wow, I'm just starting to cry.
Oh,
I, I facilitate the person's ability to heal themselves.
I love
So
that.
people say thank you, thank you, thank you. You did this, you did this, and I go, no, no, I didn't do it. You did it. You have to be willing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's willing to be willing. You have to be willing to show up for yourself, and
Yeah.
then expose yourself, and then be
Yeah.
vulnerable. And I think what I do is that that I make that easy for the other person, to share, to be vulnerable, to put themselves first in this way, so that they can tap into their own ability to
Yeah.
heal.
I'm just so happy to hear you say that because, and I really hope that what you say has an effect on at least one person because I know that there are listeners out there who want to take that first step and they just can't do it. And that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast to help
Oh,
listeners
yeah.
take that first step because I know how hard it is because taking that first step means you have to acknowledge that there is a problem, which is the case like not just in emotional abuse but anywhere. Yeah.
And what, since emotional abuse is so sneaky, um,
Yes.
the person or the victim,
Yeah.
or even myself, I think I thought I was bad, and a
Mhm.
lot of that language comes from really young ages. For me personally, that
Sure. Yeah.
I am bad, but
Yeah.
also bad, broken, uh, um, sick. Something's wrong.
Mhm.
Something needs to be fixed.
Fixed.
I try to erase the language around fixing. You are not broken.
Right.
You
Yeah.
are wounded.
Yeah.
You are you are um, inviting a space of healing.
Mhm.
We are not, of course, we can't go to the past to change it, but there's so many things that we can do on a daily basis. And we know with science and evidence based research, we can change our brains. Now we know that it's
Yeah.
not just a brain that stops developing at age 25. We can change it, neuroplasticity. So you don't we aren't trying to fix the brain, we're
Mhm.
just trying to change it,
Yeah.
and we get to decide this. And so those words like broken, something's wrong with me, oh, this one's another one, I need to get better. You
Uh-huh.
already are better. You
Yes.
when you get when
Yes.
you open your eyes and take a breath and get out of bed, that means you are winning.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and
Yes.
with I do want to mention this, and I hope
Please.
it's okay. Um,
Yeah.
so with emotional abuse, the number one concern is suicide ideation and
Mhm.
suicide ideation behaviors. And
Yeah.
with and like it or not, um, I like it or not, people have suicidal thoughts, and
Yes.
especially where I live in. Um, okay, where I live in Northwest Arkansas,
Mhm.
there is a it's changing, especially
Mhm.
since the pandemic.
Mhm.
However, people literally think, they equate suicide as bad. If I
Mhm.
think about not wanting to be here, or wishing I would die and not wake up, or wishing that I could poof away or
Yeah.
disappear. I know I did this too. I thought I was bad. I
Yeah.
thought I was bad just for being depressed.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, if I have a suicidal thought, and the fact is, it many people have thoughts of, I wish I could go to sleep and not wake up. And we
Yeah.
are not bad for that.
Yeah.
And we are not
Thank
bad for that.
Thank you for saying that. And I'm glad you brought it up. It's totally fine that you did. I'll just make sure I'll put a trigger warning at the start of the episode, if there's anyone, but no, but that's the whole point. We do have to talk about this. We absolutely do. So thank
And
you.
so and you're welcome. At
Yeah,
the beginning of a session, we go through all these things, and
sure.
many people will not, they say, no, I've never had a suicidal thought. I'm
Oh,
thinking that's not true, but
yeah,
but then I explain to them the idea, and then I go, and so there's only two reasons of why I would break your confidence, and it's if I have a very strong suspicion that you're going to kill yourself or kill someone else, then I'm going to have to break your confidence. But then I
yeah,
add this, that's probably not going to happen because you and me are going to be talking about it. And when we normalize talking about it in this way,
yeah.
then what we do is we ease the shame, guilt, and remorse for having it in the first place. And I will tell you that there was a time in my life where um, where I would fantasize about dying,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a relief. It was a
Mm-hmm.
release. It was an escape, and it
Yeah,
worked until it didn't.
yeah.
Didn't, and until I said, I'm tired of living a life I don't want to live. And this is
Mm-hmm.
after my children went on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, by the way, all three paid their own way through college.
Good for
My
them.
youngest son has his master's, and he's a
Excellent.
teacher,
Ah,
coach,
love it.
and my daughter has her PhD and has collaborated with a woman uh, to write a book called Me Too and Modernism. And
You must be so proud.
you
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 must be
you have no
so
idea.
proud. Oh,
Um, and so when I normalize talking about it, then we're more likely to get into the meat of it, and then we can help ease some shame. And also, just because you said you have a suicidal thought does not mean you're going to get hospitalized. Like
exactly.
I want to keep people out of the hospital. I
Yes.
want to
Yes.
keep people out of the hospital. I want them to learn how to find support for themselves, and
Mhm.
also learn how to know that when you, as a facilitator,
Yeah.
um, that when you can learn how to tap into your own ability to heal, then you have created a self-sustaining resource that you take with you everywhere. And
Yes.
so then you don't have to fear the lows of the lows,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
downs of the downs,
Yeah.
or even then you can be happy, and it's not like, oh, I'm bipolar. No, we're allowed a whole plethora of feelings, and they're
Yeah.
not good or bad.
Nope. No, this has been so wonderful because like you said, normalizing talking. I want people to know that getting help is not weak. Getting help will allow them to live their best lives. And that's
And
what you're doing.
well, thank you, and
You're
thank you
welcome.
for giving me this medium to get on my soapbox. But
Please.
the
Sure.
other the other thing is that weak. No, people with mental health issues are not weak. They're the
No.
strongest.
Mhm.
When you don't kill yourself when you want to equals strong.
Yes. It's so true. I remember when my own therapist told me that the fact that I was in therapy meant that I was pretty much like the healthiest of anyone I knew.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's so true. It's
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah. So, I just want to also give you an opportunity to, like I said, because there are so many people out there who really don't know how to take that first step to help themselves if they're in an emotional abuse situation. So, what advice would you give to those people?
The first thing that they can do is start taking care of themselves.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if they intuitively have a tool that they do that they've identified that works for them,
Hmm.
I really would suggest that they would use that tool and then make it a non-negotiable. The
Hmm.
my main one that is crossing all modalities is
Hmm.
meditation.
Okay.
Um, the cool thing about meditation is well, and see, people think, well, I can't do this, and I'm not doing it right, and I don't know how to do that. Well,
Yeah.
it's very very simple,
Yeah.
but it crosses. You can be atheist, or you can
Oh,
be
yeah.
evangelical. It doesn't matter your religion. It
Exactly.
crosses on, but everybody knows. That's a practitioner like me that it is something that if you're not telling your client or the person you're working with or even someone you're encouraging with, if you're not doing it, you're missing out. And
Hmm.
it's as simple as I say, do you brush your teeth every day? And they go, yeah. And then I say, well, does it feel weird when you don't brush your teeth? And they go, yeah. I go, you start meditating to where you do it so much it becomes a non negotiable, and then it feels weird when you don't do it. And
That's
so
yeah. I love that.
and the cool thing also is there's plenty of podcasts and social media like TikTok. I love TikTok. It has the best therapy talk, I guess it's called. But
Yeah.
there's so much good information. Of course, you do have to kind of filter through it, but
Yeah.
the first thing is for someone going through emotional abuse is learning how to take care of themselves,
Yeah.
and then when they get a little weight there or a little more solid ground, then I invite them to start questioning, like, you know what, that doesn't sound right, or
Mm.
uh, when I hear that, I feel disrespected, or I feel minimized, or whatever the feeling is. And so I also would invite people to start caring about the way they feel,
Mhm.
and taking ownership of that rather than blaming it on somebody, so they can start sorting, and they can start uh, addressing the emotional abuser little by little.
Sure.
um, uh, Here's an example of somebody that's in uh, this type situation, emotive abusive situation, but they're not ready to leave,
Right, right.
and they don't even know. But and so the key is working with that person
Mhm,
first so they can
mhm.
make a decision.
Right.
But they were invited to go somewhere, and their experience was every time they went somewhere they had to worry about paying, even though that other person that invited made three times what they did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
I said, first of all, I really want you to go. I'm dying for you to go, because you're going to see new people, new places. It'll be fun. It could
Yeah,
be fun.
yeah.
But before you accept, say, I'm willing to go. However, I cannot pay for anything on the trip. I don't have the extra money. And
Mhm.
then that person was able to go buy an outfit. So, so that when they went, they would, could look and feel pretty. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think it's about the outside, but for a person to confront or even question something, that takes a lot of, it's hard to do that. And so
sure.
by starting with a self-care that's free
Yes,
meditation,
yes.
then you can build and then you can decide, wait, no, these are the things I don't want anymore, and I'm going to start by asking for what I need. So with the
Mhm.
emotional abuse, the problem is people get stunted at a very young age. Like
Yeah.
I know I can tell you at age 30 when I became divorced, I was
Mhm.
a little 12-year-old running around. I was
Mhm.
being crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really like that crazy word, but I just said it.
Well, it's all right.
But
Yeah, we all do, even though that's not what we mean. I totally get it. Do you have any preferred meditation apps that you
Um,
wanna yeah.
they have yes. They have. There's so many out there. I
Yeah.
use a meditation tool that's
Uh-huh.
called a Sensate. It's a little tool you put right here, and it has an app,
Mhm.
Sensate app that has the
Okay.
music, and they have brilliantly married the healing hertz of
Mhm.
sound with
Yeah.
vibration that you put here, and it's called vagus nerve retoning.
Mhm.
Helps you reset your vagus nerve.
Okay.
And so that's the one that sends the signal down from the brain that we're in danger.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that when we get triggered. And
Got it.
so
Okay.
this helps reset that. That's one thing.
Okay. Mhm.
So what I do suggest is people try lots of different ways because there's a
Yeah.
million different ways.
Yeah.
And meditation can also be mindfulness, like
Mhm.
just being present.
Yes.
So, but as far as apps, sometimes I don't use apps because I probably just, except for that Sensate one,
Uh-huh.
because sometimes I get a little, the person's voice gets on my nerves or whatever.
I get it.
I
I
know
get it.
I'm
But
really picky that.
when it comes to meditation, yeah, it's gonna work differently for every person, and there are so many choices out there, but I did wanna ask if you had a recommendation. I'm just gonna throw this one out there because I use this one. It's just called the breathing app, but again
Yes, yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes. And
So
actually, I can
yeah.
put that for my. I'll recommend that for my clients.
Okay,
Since
yeah, yeah, do it. Do it, yeah, because I get it, because it's just there's so many out there, but at the same time, certain ones may not work for you. So, yeah.
so, and did I answer your question? I really believe. I don't think the first thing is always go to therapy
Yeah, you didn't.
for because on the for someone that needs a suggestion that's recovering from emotional abuse, the
Mhm,
reason why I don't say go to therapy
mm,
first because
mhm.
a lot of people can't afford it, and a
Yeah,
lot of people don't have insurance,
yeah.
and and but
Mhm,
if they start with themselves, then what I believe happens once you get out of the good thing about meditation is once you get out of the head and into the body, I believe that you will tap into that authentic self, that true
mhm,
self.
mhm.
You could say your soul, you could say your higher self, but I believe that's where the solutions are. I believe everybody has the solutions,
Yeah,
but they can't get to it because they're up here.
right. They're too
And
much in
and
their head. Yeah,
in the head is where
yeah.
the lies are, and that's what we know
Sure.
from science.
Right.
And so then they're going to continue. It is cool if they can start looking for a therapist,
Mhm.
but that's just not the path that a domestic violence situation, and then you also have addiction issues. So
Yeah,
all the things that come with it, you can't always get to a therapist and you can't always find a good fit.
right.
But by feeding yourself in a simple way
Mhm.
through self-care,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about free self-care,
Yes.
then and being really present with
Mhm.
yourself, that's a really good start. And then that could lead to finding therapy.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Definitely.
much for answering that question. But yeah, please.
And you do want to have a therapist that is trauma informed care
Yes.
forward, and that will have several different modalities.
Mhm.
It's not just talking. It's
Yeah.
about investigating, identifying,
Mhm.
discovering, and and then deciding how you want to move forward. And
Yeah.
so that takes someone that has several different ways to work and
Hmm.
is willing to work with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's hard enough to get yourself to show up for yourself. And uh, so you want to have someone that will work with you. And you can also challenge your therapist, like, no,
Yeah.
that's crazy, Theresa. And I'll go, you're right, it is. But I thought I would try it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've challenged my therapist in the past. Absolutely. So,
And so
wonderful.
the therapy doesn't work if there has to be a therapeutic rapport.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if the therapist is not actively trying to pursue a therapeutic rapport with you, then it's not. It's just going to be really surface level. It's going to be
Yeah,
hard.
that actually happened with me. I saw that I had a therapist for a time, and she wasn't really paying attention to me. Like, she could remember basic things about me, and I was like, I don't think this is working. And she wasn't trying to build that rapport. Yeah. Yeah.
I hear that. I hear that one too many times.
Mm,
I do
yeah.
know. I do know when. So I also don't think. My philosophy is that you don't go to therapy for life, even though even though I've gone to, but the older therapist that inspired me to get into this, she's
Yeah.
not practiced anymore, and now I have a new therapist. But
Right.
it's more along of a coach therapist. But I
Mhm.
don't go all the time. I do believe that there is um, that you it's not a lifetime sentence.
Mhm.
Uh, that I tell my clients, I go, we're going to complete here. You're not going to
Mm.
be coming to me for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then well, like sometimes some have to start twice a week, some then most are weekly, but then
Yeah.
they evolve to every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or
Mhm.
once a month. Uh,
Yeah.
I must be doing something right because a lot of people are staying on my case.
You
Try
know,
not
you
to foster codependency, but
Of course, but I think you're doing many, many things right. So on that note, how can people get in touch with you? I just want to give you an opportunity to share your website, your social media. Yeah, our listeners, I'm sure, will want to connect with you.
so I thought the easiest way to connect was through social media. I
Hmm.
do work in a clinic, and rather than go into all of that, I
Hmm.
thought social media is the easiest way to connect. And so
Yeah.
all it Instagram is the Theresa James, and it's Theresa with an H, Theresa, and then Facebook is Theresa A. James, and TikTok is at Theresa A. James, all one word.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll be sure to include those in the show notes so that people can connect with you. Theresa, I just want to thank you so much for your candor and for your enthusiasm. And it's been such a pleasure talking to you today.
My honor.
Oh,
You're doing good things with this.
sound good?
Thank you so much, Serene.
Thank
I appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Theresa James on Emotional Abuse is Real. If you would like to connect with Theresa, I've left her social media links in the show notes. If you would like to share your own emotional abuse story here on the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out at hello@sereneleadsrights.com or through Instagram at sereneleadsrights. Please note that this podcast should not be used as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you are a victim of emotional abuse and need help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988 or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START, START, to 88788. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram. Go grab my free download, 10 Things I Learned from Getting Paid to Watch TV, and if you can, please support us through our Buy Me a Coffee page. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.